Connecting to the words of the Gemara can be difficult. This series, Bringing Gemara to Life, will allow us to experience the Gemara from a new perspective, using real people and live performances. Hope you enjoy!
Welcome to the third episode of Bringing Gemara to Life. Every single word of Torah is important, and every single word has meaning. And we're going to learn that, especially tonight as we talk about Kriyas Shema and the halachos of Kriyas Shema, many of which are learned out from a single word, some of which are learned out from a single letter. And they all teach us something important, something significant. But before we jump into the Gemara and we bring the Gemara to life, we're going to take a look at the Mishnah. The Mishnah that starts the fourth parak of Maseches Brachos on 13a, Yud Gimel Amud Aleph. And the Mishnah tells us three loosely connected cases. The first case is about someone who's learning Torah before the sun comes up. And then what happens is when they get up to the paragraph of Kriyas Shema, they realize that it's now Zman Kriyas Shema, it's time to say Kriyas Shema. And the Gemara tells us, the Mishnah tells us, Hayakari b'Torah, if a person is reading the Torah, V'giya Zman HaMikra, and it becomes time to read Kriyas Shema, Im Kiven Libo Yatza. If they have kavanah to do the mitzvah, then they are yotze. Then they fulfill their mitzvah.
V'shamata Yisrael v'shamarta lasod asher yitav lecha v'asher tirbu me'od ka'asher diber Adonai Elohei avotecha la'eretz avad chalav u'devash. I will fulfill the mitzvah of Kriyat Shema while I learn this. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
The second case that the Mishnah talks about is a case when somebody is in the middle of reciting Kriyas Shema, and then someone comes up and greets them. And it's a machlokes between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda. Says the Mishnah, Beprakim, if they are between two paragraphs, then Shoam Mivnei Hakavod Umeshiv, then they are able to greet someone out of honor, and they are able to return a greeting as well. Ube'emsa, but if they're in the middle of a paragraph, then Shoam Mivnei Hayira Umeshiv, then they are able to greet someone out of fear, and they're able to return a greeting as well, and those are Divrei Rabbi Meir. Those are the words of Rabbi Meir.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha v'chol nafshecha v'chol me'odecha Ukshartam la'ot ayadecha v'hayu l'totavot b'neinecha uchtatam amazot betecho v'yisharecha.
Hey!
Yamin, what's up, man?
Shalom,
How are ya? Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol.
Your Excellency!
Good to see you, sir.
Likewise.
The Mishnah tells us that between bracha means between the first bracha and the second bracha, or the second bracha and the line of Shema, between the first paragraph and the second paragraph and the third paragraph and the line of Vayatziv. And Be'emsa means literally in the middle of the paragraph, and we are allowed to stop in the middle of the paragraph out of Yira, which is for a king, some sort of sovereignty. Really, it means someone who could have us killed. And that's the person we're able to stop and greet in the middle of saying Kriyas Shema. The halacha l'maisa, as it says in the Mishnah Berurah by the Chafetz Chaim, is that during the times of Chazal, a greeting was a very formal thing. And so if a person didn't return a greeting, that would be a great insult. And even for a friend between paragraphs, they would return greetings. And out of Yira, for a king in the middle of the paragraph, they would do so as well. But Bisman Hazeh, in current times, we don't necessarily feel the same way about greetings as they did. And so therefore, says the Mishnah Berurah, says the Chafetz Chaim, we don't follow this halacha the same way. That typically we don't stop and return a greeting because people aren't going to feel as insulted. They're going to understand if we don't say hello to them. They're going to understand what we are involved with and why we're not able to say a greeting back when they greet us. And then the end of the Mishnah has a question, and it wants to know, why does the line of Shema come before the line of Vahaya? And it says, it answers, K'dei she'yikabel alav ol malchus shamayim techila, so that a person should accept upon themselves the yoke of heaven first, v'achar kach mekabel alav ol mitzvos. And then afterwards, a person will accept upon themselves the yoke of mitzvos.
O malchus shamayim, o mitzvos, o malchus shamayim, o mitzvos. Shamayim.
Then the Mishnah wants to know, why does the paragraph of Vahaya come before the paragraph of Vayomer? And the answer is Vahaya im Shemoa noeg bein bayom bein balayla. That the paragraph of Vahaya im Shemoa, which talks about all of the mitzvos, is something that we do both during the day and at night. There are daytime mitzvos and nighttime mitzvos. But the paragraph of Vayomer is Eino noeg ela bayom bilvad. Tzitzis is only something, a mitzvah that we do during the day, and we don't do it during the night.
All day and night, only day. All day and night, only day.
Okay, let us now bring the Gemara to life, having discussed the Mishnah in Brachos. The Mishnah taught us a very important rule, and the rule is Shema Mina. We see from there, mitzvos tzrichos kavana, that mitzvos require actual intent. It's not enough to do the action of a mitzvah. One must perform that action with a specific intent in their mind. And if they don't fulfill the mitzvah. The principle, of course, is mitzvos tzrichos kavana.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad v'ahavta.
What is this? What are we doing?
Oh, just learning some Torah. Come on,
Torah.
join me here. We're all right here. Yeah. V'hayu adarim ha'ela.
It's evident from their interaction that he was not intending to read the Shema for the mitzvah of Shema. He was just learning Torah. Therefore, he didn't have kavanah for Kriyas Shema, did not fulfill the mitzvah of Kriyas Shema. There are, however, some mitzvah actions which have no other interpretation than you're doing it for the mitzvah. So certain non-verbal but more physical mitzvahs might be deemed to have automatic kavanah if you do them. For example, it is patently obvious that someone taking arba minim and waving them around a certain time of the year is doing them for the purpose of the mitzvah. So we can assume that there is kavana. The issue of mitzvah shvichas kavana is really limited to verbal mitzvahs, where you're saying something, but we're not sure what's in your mind or not. And that's why we have to be extra careful in order to demonstrate that you're doing this for the sake of this verbal mitzvah. Now the Gemara continues and tells us a machlokes between Rebbe and the Chachamim about how they derive different laws from the words of Kriyas Shema itself. Every letter, every word is precious, and it's classic in the Gemara for the Tanaim and the Amoraim to battle it out based on analyzing different words of psukim in the Torah. So the Gemara brings the following brayso: Tana Rabbanan, Kriyas Shema kiksava, divrei Rebbe. Rebbe says that when you read Kriyas Shema, you have to read it in the actual words in which it was written, namely in Hebrew, in Lashon HaKodesh. The only way to fulfill the mitzvah is by reading it in the words from the Chumash itself and no other language. However, the Chachamim say, B'chol Lashon, in any language, you're allowed to read Kriyas Shema. That's the Machlokes Rebbe and the Chachamim.
Are you ready for a cabinet meeting?
See, the Torah says Vahayu. Vahayu means Vahaviyas on you. That the way the Torah is written, that is the way we read it. The mitzvah of Kriyas Shema, to read the Shema, is Vahaviyas on the way it is. It's in Lashon HaKodesh. It's not in English. It's not in French. Not Spanish. It's in Lashon HaKodesh. And that's the way you have to say Kriyas Shema.
Point, Rebbe.
Oh, my friend. What about this pasuk? Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu Shema. It says Shema. Hear it. In any lashon. However you hear it, you should hear it. I read the word Shema to tell me that you can say Kriyas Shema in any language. Shema means b'chol lashon shata shomea.
Of course, Shema. Hashma la'azacha ma shata motzi mipicha. That you have to hear in your ears that which comes out of your mouth. You have to say it audibly. It has to be written, it has to be read in Lashon HaKodesh, in Hebrew, and it has to be said audibly when you're doing the mitzvah. That's Shema.
I'm sorry. I don't agree with that approach entirely. Okay? You do not have to listen to the words that you're saying. I don't believe it has to be mashmiya la'aznecha. I don't use the word Shema to teach me that. I use the word Shema to teach me in any language. And I don't need anything to teach me that I have to hear it, because I don't have to hear it.
So what do you say about the word Vahayu?
Okay. V'hayu is something entirely different. Vahayu teaches me I have to do the entire Shema in a certain seder, in a certain order. I have to do the first paragraph and the second paragraph. The psukim have to be in order. Vahayu, they should be this way. That's what Vahayu teaches me that, nothing else, okay?
No, that's ha-devarim. It could have said Vahayu devarim. Ha-devarim means that it has to be in order.
I'm not impressed with your hey of ha-devarim.
I got you.
Ha-devarim is a normal word. You can't derive anything extra from ha-devarim. You don't derive anything from there. You derive it from hayu, not ha-devarim. I'm sorry.
I disagree.
Well, I disagree. See what's happening here? The rabbis are arguing about every single letter, every syllable of the Torah. They're all precious, and they can all be used to derive mounds and mounds of halachos. And this is just one example of many in the Gemara about this. Halacha l'maisa, the Shulchan Aruch tells us in Siman Samachal ve'Orachayim that Shema must be said with kavana, and therefore a person should say the first line out loud, k'dei la'orer hakavana. The truth is, the louder you say something, the more kavana you can have. So we encourage you to say Shema, to belt it out loud. And that's also why we cover our eyes. When you cover your eyes, you are minimizing distractions. That also increases your kavana. The proper thing to do is that Shema should at least be loud enough that you hear yourself saying the words of the Shema. Now, if b'di'evet, after the fact, not ideally, you didn't hear yourself speaking, then we do paskin like the Chachamim. You don't have to be heard, but l'chadchila, ideally, you should be heard. You should hear yourself saying the words of the Shema. And also, regarding the issue of the language, we do paskin like the Chachamim, Baruch Hashem, that Kriya Shema should be said b'chol lashon, in any language, because it says Shema, b'chol lashon she'ata shomeya.
So I can say it in any language?
Any language?
That's what I said. I said any language.
Any language.
So I can learn to say Shema in Japanese or Latin, and I will fulfill my mitzvah?
Shema means b'chol lashon, any language.
No. I don't like that. I think if it's not Hebrew, then it must be at least be in a language you understand. I speak a little Chinese, but if it's in Hebrew, fine. Even if you don't know it, every word.
I like that more.
So the Bali HaTosfos come along and push back a little on what the language of the Gemara seems to say. That when Chachamim say b'chol lashon, it's not mean any language at all. It's any language that you understand. However, you can't say it in Japanese if you don't understand Japanese. Jason speaks Chinese, so you can say it in Chinese. Fine. But there's a difference between Lashon HaKodesh and other languages. When it comes to Lashon HaKodesh, to Hebrew, even if you don't understand the words of Hebrew, you fulfill the mitzvah by saying Shema in Hebrew. However, other languages, you only fulfill the mitzvah of Shema if you understand those languages. That's because Lashon HaKodesh has a status of Lashon language no matter what. It has its esteemed status, and we can rely upon it for anyone to say Shema in Hebrew, which we encourage. The other languages you can only fulfill if you understand those languages.
Now we're going to flip a few pages and go to the Mishnah that's on 15a, Tesvav Amud Aleph. And the Mishnah over there teaches us two cases, two important halachos about Kriya Shema. And the first one is Kara v'lo dikdek b'osei osea. A person reads the words of Kriya Shema, but they're not precise with every single word, every single letter. Says Rabbi Yossi, Yatza. Rabbi Yossi says you fulfill your mitzvah, even if you're not precise, exact with every single word, every single letter of Kriya Shema. And Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Yehuda says, Lo Yatza. That you have to say every single word and every single letter of Kriya Shema precisely in order to fulfill the mitzvah. Yatza, he fulfills the mitzvah.
Lo Yatza, he did not fulfill the mitzvah.
And the second halacha that the Mishnah teaches us is Kara v'ta. You're reading and you make a mistake. Yachzor l'makom sheta. You go back to the place in which you made the mistake.
והיו הדברים האלה אשר אתם מצווים היום על לבבך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשכבך ובקומך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך.
And now let's jump into the Gemara over there, where the Gemara helps us understand these rules a little bit better. The first rule that we talked about was reading the Shema and not being medactic, not being precise with every single word. And the Gemara quotes a brisa which tells us, "Limadtem shehei limudcha tam." The word limadtem teaches us that our learning should be complete. What does that mean? Shitein revach bein hadvakim. That words that are stuck together, they have similar letters, they sound similar, we have to put a space in between them to show that this is one word and this is another word. They shouldn't be read as one long word read together, but they should be read slowly and separately.
Bechol levavcha, bechol levavcha.
Al levavecha, al levavecha.
Esav besadecha, Esav besadecha.
And the Shulchan Aruch paskins, like Rabbi Yossi, that even if a person's not precise in their reading of Kriya Shema, they still fulfill the mitzvah. But the Mishnah Berurah, the Chavetz Chaim, implores us that we should read every word carefully. He says it's like a person who's counting their money, how careful a person is as they count every single coin. That's how careful we should be as we say every single word of Kriya Shema. And that's why the Siddur has lines in between the words. It's there to help us remember to pause, to stop, not to read the words fast, but to read them with spaces and breaks in between them. The other halacha that the Mishnah taught us was about if a person makes a mistake while they're reciting Kriya Shema. What should they do? Where should they go back to? And it says, Kara v'ta'a ve'eno yodea lehechenta. You read and you make a mistake and you don't know where you made the mistake. If you're be'emsa haperik, if you're in the middle of the paragraph, then yachzer l'rosh. You go back to the beginning of the paragraph. But bein perik leperik, if you're between one paragraph and another, then yachzer leperik rishon. You go back to the earlier paragraph. But bein kasiva lekasiva, if you read the line of ukasavtem amazos b'secho visharecha, and you don't know which one you read, then, says the Gemara, yachzar lekasiva rishona. You go back to the earlier pasuk.
Ukshartam leos al yadecha v'hayul totofos beinenecha uksavtam al mezuzos beisecha uvisharecha leman yirbu yimechem v'yimei b'nechem al hadama asher nishba Hashem lavosechem laseis lahem kimei hashamayim al haaretz v'yomar Hashem el Moshe limor daber al b'nei Yisrael marta lehem v'asu lahem tzitzis. What? Did I?
So in this case, what do? We go back to the first paragraph, to the line of Ukasavtam that's in the first paragraph, and continue Kriya Shema from there.
Daber al b'nei Yisrael v'marta lehem v'asu lahem tzitzis. What? Usavtam al mezuzos beisecha uvisharecha v'haya im shamoa tishmu al mitzvosai asher anochi mitzaveschem hayom.
So we have tasted some of the laws of Kriya Shema based on the Mishnah and the Gemara and Brachos that give us some details about how to properly fulfill the amazing mitzvah of Shema, based on the Psukim with many arguments between Tanaim and so many practical considerations. Just to recap, we have seen the concepts of where, when, and how a person can answer the greetings of others during Shema, in the middle of a paragraph, between paragraphs. Although practically speaking, as we saw quoted from the Mishnah Berurah, we tend to not interrupt at all nowadays because we don't have that fear, that yira of which the Mishnah spoke. Number two, we talked about mitzvah srichas kavana, the necessity to have proper kavana during Kriya Shema. If you don't intend to fulfill the mitzvah, and the nuances of Kabbalas Ol Malchus Shemayim, Kabbalas Ol Mitzvos, you don't fulfill the mitzvah of Kriya Shema. It's not good enough just to articulate the words. Number three, we talked about what language one must recite Shema in, Machlokas Rabbi and Chachamim. And we did conclude that it's preferable to say it in Lashon HaKodesh, even if you don't understand it. However, it can be said in any other language that you do understand. Number 4, we talked about the care with which we must recite the words of Shema, to enunciate each syllable, and also the danger letters, the end of one word, beginning of the next word, they shouldn't bleed together. And finally, what to do if a person makes a mistake. Thank you for helping us bring Gemara to life.